Why, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Anime Club. I'm Nick Knack, with me is the great Lord Vorn.
Arise, everyone!
Realm Shifter.
So I may have binged ahead. I binged this show and half the what was out with the next season.
Okay.
I'm not going to spoil anything.
No. But here's the thing. Here's what I will say. Every single person in this room has either read or watched further than season 1. You actually read further than season 1 when you borrowed the first 3 volumes from me.
Okay.
We're going to try not to spoil anything past season 1, but apologies if we do.
I mean, just, if we do. I mean, season 2 is not completed yet. It's currently releasing as of when we're filming this.
Yes.
But Vorn, Nick Knack, and I have finished the series in various...
I haven't finished it.
Sorry. Vorn and I have finished the series. You in the webtoon and me in the web novel and webtoon. Nick Knack is at volume 10 in the webtoon. And Realm has for certain read up to volume 3.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I also binged all the way to the most recent episode.
Yes.
In the anime. So up to episode 19, I'm assuming? 18 or 19?
Yeah, 18.
Yeah. 19
but
came out last night, I think.
Yes. But to finish my spotlight, what I was going to say is that I felt like I ate a full bag of Doritos after finishing what was left over from season 2.
I don't know what that means.
And lastly...
I just meant it felt satisfying in a guilty pleasure kind of way.
Okay. I thought that was some sort of, maidenless, internet meme I wasn't aware of.
I mean, I know my brain rot is terminal, but God.
Well, I just kind of assume that anytime you make a reference I don't know, it's some sort of maidenless thought.
I mean, valid, honestly.
And Sekhie, folks.
Hi.
Maidenless.
This was mine. I'm so excited.
My suffering couldn't be contained off the shelf, apparently?
Yeah, no, because I have been making you read this for a year and a half now? Possibly longer. I think we're just lucky that I'm not making you read
It's
the
one of our
novel, too.
oldest series on Off the Shelf.
Yeah, it's one of the first off the shelves we put out, and it's ongoing because we're doing just 1 volume per episode. For the interest of people watching who might be reading this, the first season of the anime, if you're reading it in paper, covers up to volume 3 of the webtoon physical release and volume 2 of the light novel physical release. But in actuality, it is chapter 45 of the webtoon and 55 of the web novel. Just for people who might be reading the actual thing, either on the web novel site it's on, or on webtoon where you can access it. So that is officially where season 1 ends, right? It's 12 episodes. Goes up to episode 12.
Mm-hmm.
Arise. And I remember being so fucking hyped about this show when it was announced. Because I remember when it was announced, we were coming off the high of 86 with Hiroyuki Sawano. Mm-hmm. And he did the music for Solo Leveling, too.
Okay, I thought the music sounded familiar.
Yeah, so the OP was written by Hiroyuki Sawano.
I was on a Sawano high as all hell at that time because 86 was announced,
and
he was announced to be the composer for Strange Fake as well.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, I need Sawano injected into my veins.
Pumped up to my veins!
And here's the thing, I actually love the opening song for this show. If you listen to the lyrics, it is mostly in English. And the lyrics are actually, you're singing as if you are, Sung Jin-woo, basically.
Yeah.
He's actually singing about how he levels up and stuff like that. It's actually pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. If you look up the lyrics, it's pretty interesting. That extends to the ED. I really like the ED, which is done in a very different style than any other part of the show.
Right.
I don't know if, I assume you guys watched it at least once.
At least,
Yep.
yeah.
And it's got this kind of grungy old TV vibe, vaguely thriller-esque at moments. Mm-hmm. It's a vibe. I really liked it.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was one of those old MTV music videos you would see in the early 2000s.
Look, Sawano's a goat, and if you want some more Sawano in your veins at the time that this video comes out, Xenoblade Chronicles X should release with Sawano as composer there as well.
Look, I feel like it's an accurate thing to say that the music for this show was just absolutely fantastic. You know? Like, Sawano did a great job. In fact, I think, and this is peeking into a little bit of my commentary over the next however long this episode is going to be, I only have 2 complaints about the entire first season of this.
Alright.
And one of them is an animation commentary, and the other one is a story change.
Alright.
Yeah.
Understandable. Because
some
I, even though it's been a long time since I last read the first novel, or not novel, but first book, I felt like some things were different from what I remember. I just can't place my finger on it because it's been so long since I read the first one.
Yeah. So, I'm assuming, so we all liked the music, right?
Yeah.
How did we all feel about the animation? It is A1 Pictures.
I mean, the animation was well done. It kind of had to be for this series. Solo Leveling's entire identity is its fight scenes.
Yeah, that actually brings me into one of the 2 complaints I have. I felt that the fight with Kang Tae-shik was under...
Who?
The stealth guy in the dungeon who killed a bunch of people. From the Hunters Association.
Interesting. Actually, that was one of my favorite fight scenes.
Yeah.
I actually didn't like it very much because I thought a lot of the fight just relied on still images and like lines, and like there was like a couple lines of light on the screen, and then like blood would like come out, but there wasn't much motion. I felt it actually felt more like reading, like literally scrolling through the webtoon than it did watching an anime. Just for that one fight, I had some issues with it. I just think it wasn't very animated, and I get that they were trying to portray the whole like 2 people using stealth, moving like extremely fast. It just, I felt like they could have done a little better on that fight.
It was more than likely a creative decision, from what I can tell, where they, like how you said, it reminded you of actually reading a panel from the manhwa itself. So they probably leaned a little bit more into making it feel like you're the reader actually reading it, but also it's partially animated. So that's probably where the disconnect comes from, but
that's fair.
Yeah.
It just that fight was significantly different than pretty much every other fight in the series, which are all like fantastically animated as they need to be. So it does stand out a bit in my memory as being slightly jarring. But I mean, if that's a creative decision, that's a creative decision, you know? I don't think that like they just dropped the animation budget on one single fight, you know?
Yeah. So I don't really have much else to say about this. I definitely enjoy the animation and just like all the characters, and also I just like how progressively Sun Jin Woo gets more and more swole just as the show goes on.
Yeah, because he does do a lot of like physical growing, but you also see throughout the course of the first season, he's slowly losing his emotions. And he's stopping reacting to things like a human would.
Right.
Like, he acknowledges it during, like, the Kang Tae-shik fight, where he literally says, that's another emotion gone. Like, I don't feel anger in my bloodlust. Like, he feels it, but I don't feel that anymore.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Although I may have, even though I have not read the rest of it yet, I may have spoiled myself to the inner...
Well, no, you've read up to...
Well, no, I read up to, like, Volume 3, but what I mean is I spoiled myself to further events that happen way later that the show builds up to.
You mean in Season 2?
Not even...
Or in future books?
In future books.
Oh, you went and looked up stuff?
I went and looked up stuff. So I kind of understand, I think, why he's doing some of the or why he's losing some of the emotions that he's doing.
Well, I liked the mention of the lost emotions coupled with obviously skipping ahead, spoilers, whatever. But obviously coupled with the last 2 episodes of this season, you've got his job change quest, and there's that moment where he's sort of confronted by a version of himself in his own mind, but it's himself back from like episode 1, and it's just ripping into him.
Oh yeah,
you know, and trying to like destroy him and break him down, telling him that he's doing everything wrong and everyone hates him and he'll never amount to anything and he'll always be weak.
Although I have some additional context for that one, so it's really hard not to want to talk about it, but it's out of the scope of this video. So
Yeah, I was gonna say even Knick Knack just got to that, so
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, actually kick back, like, I love, like, the mirror scene where he's just looking at himself like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, like, holy shit, like, because, like, this is not like a 17-year-old or 18-year-old, he's, like, 24 years old. Like, he's basically done growing at this point, and yet he has this, like, growth spurt, and, like, the developing new muscles, that's not that weird. People can build up new muscles and new physique. And honestly, depending on your diet and exercise, you could do that relatively quickly if you were very dedicated to it. And I mean, he does have a pretty punishing daily routine that the system is requiring.
I mean, I like the joke. I like the joke how it's the Saitama workout.
Yeah, there's just 100 of everything a day, and then 10-kilometer run.
Yes.
And if he doesn't do it, punishment zone.
Yep, the punishment zone. Although I do like the detail how in the final episode of the season where he decided to skip it, and that's what saved his ass in that moment.
I love him going into the job change and just being like, well, this will be short, so like I'll do my daily exercise when I'm done.
Yeah. In retrospect, it was good he didn't do
Schrodinger's push-ups.
Okay, so I do think it's maybe a little bit important to think about sort of the structure of the anime, because there's some interesting stuff, I think, in how it's adapted. So the ending of the first episode was a great ending point. I mean, there's a very similar reflection in how they kind of ended, like, the first episode of, like, the webtoon with, like, the traumatic death and then sort of, like, rebirth, you know?
Right.
Because that's the whole point of this series, is that, like, he's dying, and then he accepts the system, and it doesn't put him back in time, but it resets his body, right? To, like, before it was super incredibly injured.
Yep.
And he awakens again, like, awakens a second time as, like, a hunter, nominally. But, like, in this world, people do not level up, right? That's the whole point of him leveling up being so exceptional. People do not have the ability to increase their power levels of their own training and effort. It's like when they awaken as a hunter to fight against these monsters and gates, they awaken as whatever strength level they have.
Yes.
Yep.
And they also don't get a choice in what they awaken as, which we see from one of his the old guy who is in the first the first 3 dungeons with him, is that he's a swordsman, but he awakened as, like, a magician, and he's like, well, the magic doesn't help my swordsmanship, and the swordsmanship doesn't help my magic. So it's kind of just bad all around.
He should have just become a magic swordsman. He really should have.
But the powers don't work like that. You can't, like, meld them to do what you want them to do.
Like,
which I kind of like, that it's basically like, here's your lot. Make of it what you will.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to change this.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it does kind of suck that you, like, as a magician, though, you can't, like, apply your magic in different forms. It's just
some people can.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just he can't.
Yeah, he can't. Well, I guess that probably has to do because it's his rank as a magic caster.
Well, no, it's not just that. It's specifically, like, just what you woke up. So some casters can use their magic on others. Some can't. That's just how they wake up, and it's completely random, it seems.
I see.
Like, sometimes you a mage, aka, like, wizard, like, term mage. Sometimes you're an artificer, where you actually can apply stuff to stuff. And sometimes you're just a warlock.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, obviously at the end of season 1 we meet one of my favorite characters, Igris, the blood red commander.
Oh yeah. Igris the goat.
Which fantastic fucking fight scene. Oh my god. But so the first arc is that D-rank dungeon. That's where he ends up, like, the reawakening. And then he's got that first instant dungeon is the first time we see like a dungeon that's kind of designed for him by the system that he's able to access. Where he gets Casca's Fang, the dagger. And he actually continues using Casca's Fang pretty much...
Until...
Well, pretty much indefinitely. He pulls it out periodically whenever he needs it, because its poison ability is good.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, the paralysis is pretty effective on most things, it turns out.
I mean, he uses it on Kangtae Shek. I almost blurted out a sentence that was related to episode 15.
He uses it the whole entire season worth, okay?
Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
But what I was going to say, because I think if I remember correctly, the reading the effect, it's like it drains, when paralysis applies, it drains the opponent's HP by 1% of its max.
Mm.
That means that in theory, if he applies for paralysis 100 times, well, then his
They're
opponent's dead.
Yeah, it compounds.
Yeah.
Then there's the Dungeons and Lizards arc, which is the one where he and the little D-ranker, Jin-Ho, end up surviving after kind of massacring the team that was attempting to massacre them.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the addition, but so between that and then the Dungeons and Prisoners, which is the next arc, we've got the prisoners in there and Kang Tae-shik. It is interesting that inside of Dungeons is largely a lawless zone, and the government is kind of forced to trust what people say goes on in the dungeon when they come out of it. You know what I mean?
It makes sense, though.
Yeah, it makes sense, but it's also that opens up like a really interesting to think about, like, murderers could just, like, who become hunters are just like, oh, well, I just murder people in the dungeon and no one will ever, no evidence.
Right,
Never
no evidence. Oh, they died tragically in
Yeah.
a horrible massacre. There were tons of really strong monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, no bodies, no evidence, no proof other than what people say, which is interesting. Obviously, we get recurring visits from my favorite character, Woo Jin-chul. That's the monitoring man at the Hunters Division.
Yep.
Orange hair, slicked back, love him.
Yep.
Absolutely stunning, favorite character. Poor guy needs so much sleeping time and, like, less work on his plate, but,
Right.
And then there's like the raid parties, where he, like, gets together with Jin-Ho and they're like, okay, we're going to recruit a bunch of people who can't really raid and then pay them a bunch of money and then just tell them to sit outside and do nothing.
Right.
And we'll go and clear the dungeons.
That was great.
So you could level up and gain EXP. I mean, it's EXP farming.
Yeah.
You know?
He needed a way to farm, and that was his terms and conditions.
Yep. And then Job Change is our last arc.
Yep.
Where he gets his Arise ability.
Yes. Or his necromancy, if you would.
Yeah.
Did you actually watch, like, there's, like, a YouTube short of the English voice actor doing, like, the Arise?
Yeah. It was pretty funny.
So funny.
Yeah, because it was one of those things where they were like, it needs to be really cool when he says, like, he's got to be really cool when he says this, So it's very amusing to watch.
Stop fiddling with the fur and keychain, knick-knack.
Well, if you'll notice, Knick-Knack has been very quiet up till now, and that's because Knick-Knack has complex thoughts on this topic and does not want to interrupt us, but does intend to express his displeasure.
That when Knick-Knack is quiet, it means
he's displeased.
I'm very pleased with the movement of my desk in front of my window here so I can look at the cherry blossom tree right outside.
I don't see no cherry blossom tree out there.
It's not really a cherry blossom tree.
Yeah.
I suppose then before we let Knick-Knack go off on whatever his complaints are, I do have the one other problem I had to mention is that the anime seems to be pushing the agenda of a developing romance in a way that the web novel and webtoon did not, because you get the introduction of Hunter Cha-hae-in in episode 1. Like, she is introduced in episode 1. And we flash back to her almost, I'd say, every other episode for, like, some sort of interlude about her. She was not introduced in the web novel or the webtoon until after the chapters that this episode set covers. She was not introduced until, I think, chapter, like, 85 and 65, respectively.
Oh, wow.
And solo leveling overall is not a romance story.
No.
So her introduction this early is very interesting.
Wait, the healer girl?
No, she's the sword girl.
Okay.
Yeah, who's she's the vice commander of the Hunters Guild.
Yeah.
Outside of that, we actually do get a fair amount more flashes to Choi Jong-in and Baek Yoon-ho, who are the two heads of, like, the two strongest hunter guilds in the country. Baek Yoon-ho is, like, the white tiger guy, and Choi Jong-in is the flame man. We do not see as much of them in the webtoon or the manhwa this early. Like, they do appear briefly, but we don't get as many, like, perspectives from them. And in the first episode, in the anime, we're getting more perspectives from the worldview. So, like in the first episode, even is it the first or the second episode? There's that whole thing about Jeju talking about it, and that doesn't happen at all in the webtoon. Not till we get to Jeju. So, I'm interested in how they're going to keep developing that in the anime, right? Past episode 12. Because bringing those characters in now is essentially, they're essentially having to write new material for these characters for the anime. Because these characters, while they are, interesting characters, and they do show up fairly often, they are not as major as the anime is making them seem in terms of their involvement with the plot.
Yeah.
But I don't hate that, because I really like Baek-Yoon-ho and Choi Jong-in. And I think it is interesting to see a wider perspective on the world, to like hear from some of the other characters how they're feeling about what's happening. I'm a little confused about Cha-Hae-in's romance plot, though. I'm very confused about how much they're going to push that, though, because it is a non-entity in the tune.
I struggle to remember the character names, but
short blonde hair. She's the vice commander of the guild that wears red a lot.
Okay.
She wields a sword. She's part of the Flame Dudes Guild.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so, like I said, if this had gone to the webtoon and manhwa story, you would never have even met her in the first 12 episodes. She doesn't exist in the first 12 episodes.
Yeah.
She's not introduced until later.
Right.
Yeah.
She's not, for context, just for Realm, since he's the only person who hasn't read further. And skip ahead to the time I put on screen if you're watching this and don't want to be spoiled for a section of season 2. She does not even appear until after the Red Gate.
Oh.
Yeah, she should be.
She doesn't appear until he's facing the High Orcs. That's the first time we ever see her.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, she appears when.
Nope, that's it. No,
No,
it's
the mining.
High Orcs. Yeah, that's the High Orc dungeon.
Yeah.
That's Thorn. I just said.
Sorry, no, I thought like you meant like exactly when it turned into a Red Gate.
No, I meant that whole arc.
Oh, okay.
Because no, when I said Red Gate arc, I meant the Frozen Gate with the Ice Elves.
Oh.
Because the
Oh,
High
yeah,
Orc
you're
Gate
right.
isn't actually red.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, sorry.
Anyways, we finished talking about spoiler stuff now.
Yeah.
Before I say anything, because I went into this making sure I don't actually hate this series at all. If you've watched Solo Leveling, you're gonna get like my more complex, like actually thought out thoughts here. But I have complex thoughts, and I don't want to monopolize any substantial complaints people might have on Solo Leveling. So if either of you have any complaints about Solo Leveling beyond the adaptational differences, because I know that's Sekhie's biggest like concerns.
I think
complaints.
the only other concern I have about the anime is more of a perspective one, and it has to do with the fact that this is sort of getting into like the meta around the series, less than the series itself.
Mm-hmm.
The series itself has a generally negative portrayal of Japan, and there is some concern in the fandom as to how the anime is going to do that, since it is a Japanese-produced animation. But nothing has happened yet, as of recording this, and so I will just hope that they do not alter it too much, and
that's all adaptational stuff.
Yeah.
But like these two don't have an entire series of videos on the channel to go over like any complex thoughts they might have on the plot. Do you guys have any like thoughts or anything you want to put out there regarding anything in specific?
I mean, if I had to put one thing out that is kind of nagging me, it's mostly how they're developing the rest of the cast personally. Not because I particularly dislike any one cast member, but I just feel like it's not what we've got, at least from the first season, and kind of why I was so eager to go into season 2. Is that I felt like I didn't really understand the ensemble cast enough. And so it left me kind of hung and dry, so to speak, with the remaining side characters, because a lot of these interactions are disconnected with what's happening with our protagonist.
Is this a good time to mention that the series is not an ensemble cast?
Okay, so I'm using
I know, but what I mean is I know exactly what you mean. That is entirely anime unique.
Yeah.
The book itself focuses on only Sung Jin Woo.
Yep. Everyone is side character.
All those complaints Sekhie had, or potential concerns adaptationally Sekhie had, I'm sitting over here like, these are good things because this series has no characters that recur.
Yeah. So the thing is, with the books, there is no ensemble cast in that the characters only appear and are only necessary so long as they are applicable to Sung Jin Woo's exact actions at the moment that they appear.
So that's the ironic other adaptational difference that I didn't even realize was an adaptational difference problem.
That's part of what I was. It's part of what I was trying to explain a little bit earlier with the characters who come in that didn't have screen time in the webtoon or manhwa. Is that I do think it's genuinely good that they're including them, but how is that gonna continue? Like, for example, past season 2, when some of these characters don't really appear anymore. Because I think I know where season 2 is going to end, right? So past the end of season 2, when some of these characters just don't appear anymore in the written material because the story has eclipsed their need for them, what is going to happen to them now that they've been developed? Will the development of these characters as an ensemble around Sung Jin Woo be well thought out and well written, or will it fail in certain ways because there's no actual basis for it?
Especially with the romance that they're
supposedly pushing. Especially with the romance. I am very concerned about that.
And how about you, Vaughn? Do you have anything that maybe storyline-wise that you want to say, either good or bad? I don't care. I just want to not hog spotlight here because I do have 10 plus videos on the channel going over my thoughts on the story.
The thing is, my issue isn't really with like what is covered in this season. I don't really have that much of an issue with. There's not that much problem. Later on, oh yes, I kind of have some issues with that kind of stuff, but like, I will say this, I do like the little bit more of like introductions of the side characters a bit more, because you do see that in the webtoon as well, and you do see some couple flashbacks and a little bit of day life, what the heck they are doing ever so slight, but this is a bit more, so that's nice. Other than that, I got nothing. I liked it, at least for this section. A little slow, but yeah.
All right.
Knick-knack rant.
So I'm going to jump right off a realm here because that's like the first thing that always comes up when I'm talking about solo leveling with people and my problems with it. There are three types of characters in solo leveling. There's gawkers, jobbers, and Sung Jin Woo.
There's the people who gawk and stare at him. There's the people who do jobs related to him, and then there's him.
Oh no, when I say jobbers, I mean people that are either killed by him or killed by the thing he's about to go kill.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Sung Jin Woo's the only character with character, which doesn't exactly help when he has the most out-of-the-edge, Shadow the Hedgehog, like,
when he's literally
power
losing
emo
his
fantasy
emotions.
character I've ever seen, with the story writing device of I'm feeling emotions less and less, which it's a choice. Maybe it works with a better ensemble cast. One that's your only character that's getting any kind of spotlight, though. That's a choice, but that's a boring ass choice that you see being made by really bad directors in Hollywood. What? This manly man character doesn't have much emotional response? Okay, how about the characters around him? There aren't that many characters around him. It's his story. Well, it's a boring story. And it doesn't help, and we don't feel it too bad here in these arcs. I'll admit here, this might be what Vaughn was saying here, but some of these arcs get kind of repetitive, and you see it only a little towards the end, where it's like, he goes in, can I beat it? Oh yeah, I can beat it pretty easily, just a little bit, like, if I just flex a tiny bit harder than I did last time I beat it. There's no stakes that Sung Jin Woo's gonna die. The only people you have to worry about dying are the jobbers.
Yep.
Power leveling fantasy. Don't you love it?
Oh yeah.
You've had me read better power leveling fantasy though.
Well, hang on. So, in terms of power leveling fantasy, right? Let's slight tangent here, but this is a podcast. It's fine. So, you've read Solo Leveling, right? You've then read Tomb Raider King.
Yep.
Right. You've read Doombreaker.
Okay, that one was not good.
Yeah. Well, and then I had you read Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. Right. Those are the four that you've read from me. And arguably, I would not compare this to Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint.
That one doesn't feel as much like a power leveling.
Yeah.
No, and also, I will. Oh, I've also had you read the beginning after the end, right? So it's 5. But Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is very different, right? Even though it's technically in the same vein, it's a very different story. And to be fair, I think something to note is, at least in the English world, the beginning after the end, Solo Leveling, and Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint are like the 3 pillars of the power leveling fandom, right? Like, there are other series that are very popular, but these three are, like, massive, right? And of those three, The Beginning After the End is the only one that's written by someone from the Western world. Because The Beginning After the End is written by someone, I believe, who lives here in the U.S., who is of Asian descent, but is not natively.
Yep.
So, you really... Your comparisons... I mean...
See,
I guess Tomb Raider King is probably the closest.
I don't remember much about Beginning After End, but I think we only read one volume of that.
We did only read one volume.
So so I'm gonna put that one aside. But the other ones I read,
But it was like 50 chapters.
it was a lot that we read,
Yeah.
but it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was only one time. But the other ones that we read, I remember a little bit more about,
Yeah.
and the difference and why I like them more is because they actually flesh out their supporting cast.
Well, and also Orv isn't technically following the Sung Jin-woo
No.
character of the story. Orv is following the reader who read the Sung Jin-woo story
Yeah.
and then is now participating in the story.
Yep.
Which makes it altogether an entirely different experience. But no, I will not deny that Sung Jin-woo is a not fantastically emotive character.
Ooh, the edge,
Um,
as Nick Nack put it.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and like some of that mellows as you get into the story, in my opinion. I won't spoil that here. Some of that mellows, I think, just by learning more about the story. But it doesn't fix it. And like, here's the thing. The way that the fandom treats solo leveling is as if it has an ensemble cast. It's so funny, right? As someone who is deeply into the solo leveling fandom, right? Choi Jong-in, Yoon Baek-ho, Woo Jin-chul, like all these characters and a bunch of others,
Who?
Thomas Andre, all these characters, like collectively as a fandom, we just treat them as an ensemble supporting cast. Are they?
No.
No, not really.
The
For most
problem
of
is,
them.
like, the most
I
interesting
think-
characters in Solo Leveling, in my opinion, are the ones that are written out by, like, the third arc. It's like the people in that double dungeon with him that get written out very quickly.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I think for me, like, Woo Jin-chul is one of my favorite characters, and he does get more screen time as the story goes on. He is the rare exception of a side character that does actually get more fleshed out as the story goes on. We get more about his sister, obviously, and his mother will kind of periodically come
Wait,
back
sister? Was it?
in. Jinnah.
Oh,
His
you mean-
literal sister.
Sorry, no.
The person that he was born related to.
No. I thought you were talking
I
about
know that's rare in anime.
the
Yeah.
sidekicks, like,
Jin-ho?
yeah, Jin-ho's.
No.
Yeah,
The
no.
literal
Yeah.
sister that he was born with.
Yeah, no. Sorry.
And obviously we don't stop seeing Jin-ho. So like Jinnah, Jin-ho, and his mother and Woo Jin-chul are the characters that, in my opinion, stick around the most in the story as part of
Yeah.
an ensemble cast, if you have to call it an ensemble cast. But it's not. It's really not.
No.
You see them when they're relevant to him, and they're often just reactive to things that he is doing.
Conkers.
Or he is reacting to
Yep.
something that they're doing. But the fandom collectively treats all these characters like we are part of an ensemble cast. So like you go into like fan art and fan fiction and you'll stuff about Thomas Andre and stuff about Lu Gang and stuff about Goto Ryuji
See-
and like all these other characters that come in and show up.
Can I say?
I think.
Fandom knows what's up.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
Okay. I think the reason why that the anime is going the romance route is due to all the fan interpretations probably between those two, if I had to
Actually,
guess.
that is not a popular pairing.
Really?
No, okay,
Yeah.
so when I say that Cha-hae-in and any romance... So, I'll put another skip ahead option here. Oh, you're here.
Yeah, I'm here. I have not finished reading. You might have to save this for your own time on your own stream or
hold
telling
on.
Rob
Go
seven.
into
Hold
the
on.
bathroom and turn
let
on
me
the
rephrase
fan.
this. Let me rephrase this. His romance with Cha-hae-in is always non-existent. His romance with anyone is always non-existent. Romance in this story is non-existent.
It's a big fat zero.
The closest thing that you get to romance in this story is sexual tension between two people fighting, which is always gay in this context. Like to put it into context, that is the closest you get to romance is undiagnosed sexual tension in fights.
So I was right with my YouTube feed when I looked at all those shorts and seeing these quote-unquote pairings being a bunch of either fan art or bait, so to speak.
Yeah. So, like, for example, the most popular pairings in fandom for Jinwoo outside of Heian are Jin Chul, Thomas Andre, Lu Ji Gang, Jin Ho. For some reason, there's a huge section of the community that crosses Solo Leveling over with Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint and ships the two protagonists together, which is wild. But yeah, no, it is. That's why I'm so hesitant and also interested in the development of the romance, because it's not just that Chahayan and his romance doesn't develop till like later in the story. It's that romance in this story
Does
is
not
non-existent.
happen. It does not happen.
And so they are writing in an entire sort of new plot that was never fleshed out. So it doesn't. They're writing in something that doesn't exist, and that can be done. I absolutely think that can be done, especially in an adaptation to make something better. Will they do it that well?
Yes.
Or is it gonna just turn into like some sort of weird fan servicey crash and burn thing?
Ooh.
I'm concerned.
Like, especially considering the nature of the show, where it is by definition a power fantasy. Are they going to lean into that and kind of put in the worst aspects of it, or are they going to actually do something substantial with it?
I got perfect saying this. You know the saying, "I will kick you into next Tuesday"?
Yes.
That's kind of how it feels like with the romance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we'll visit it 3 Tuesdays from never.
Yes.
Here's the thing. I love Solo Leveling. You know I am one of its biggest proponents, right? That doesn't mean I think it's a flawless story. It has issues, but I love it.
Can I just say, there's a special place in my heart for this adaptation for one reason and one reason alone.
What is it?
So prior to the adaptation coming out, I would say my thoughts to someone like Sekhie or my brother, who are both really big Solo Leveling fans, and I'd get looked at like I was a fucking psychopath. I think the release of the anime, I've seen a lot more people with my opinions pop up here and there, and I think that's humbled the fan base just a little bit as to some of the shortcomings of the series.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I will admit that when I first started reading this, I did think it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Sorry, Betty White. Sorry, irrelevant joke these days. But when I first started reading this, I did think it was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. But also consider, this was the first power leveling fantasy I ever read. Like, genuinely. I think I had only read one story that was like this ever before. And it was a webtoon called The Gamer that I started reading back in like 2017 or something, which has just finished. And I will be having you read it on the channel at some point. But I wanted to wait till it was finished. Hey, I like The Gamer, fuck off.
I fell off.
But, like, this was basically the first power leveling fantasy that I'd ever read that was categorized as such and sort of part of the mainstream of power leveling fantasy. And I did go on to read a bunch of others later, right? And I think reading a bunch of others helped mellow my opinion. And then talking about it with, like, you and other people also helped. Because it definitely, when you love something so much and it's, like, the first thing you've read of that, you definitely feel a lot more attached to it. I think I had the same letdown with Ray Liana. Right, is that it was one of the first Reiwa novels I ever read. Oh my god, I love this, and then I kind of went back and I was like, oh, this is not as good as I remember it being.
Clearly, you're not a Pokemon or a Star Wars fan. We spend non-stop amount of time complaining about the things we're nostalgic for.
Yeah.
Look, I can admit that I have matured enough that I can recontextualize my own opinions on things that I love.
That you can sometimes just pull down the rose-tinted glasses just a little bit.
I love Solo Leveling. I'm certainly not going to say that it's a flawless series, but I do think it's a really fun series, and I enjoy rereading it and reading it and watching it in this case. I mean, if I didn't enjoy watching it, I wouldn't have watched 7 more episodes of Season 2 after finishing a rewatch of the first 12 episodes, which I did watch in dub and sub. I don't mind it in dub. I don't think the dub was bad. I think the problem I had with the dub is it's a problem I don't have in the sub, because in the sub, right, in Japanese audio, I almost never know the names of Japanese voice actors, right? So it's very rare for me to recognize them from like one show to another, because often they're putting on a very particular voice. I did recognize almost every single main voice in the English adaptation as belonging to someone else, but I could not tell who they belonged to, and it did bother me the entire time I was watching it. I think because there's just less voice actors dubbing things over into English, so it kind of became like I was hearing his voice, and I was like, this doesn't sound like the character, but I think that's just because in my head it sounds like someone else, and I know it's someone else, and the voice actor is not putting on any sort of different inflection from how he plays this other character in this other show. So it bothered me a little bit, but I think I had the same issue with Prince of Tennis when I first watched the dub. So it's always an issue that you might have when watching the sub first, you know? Or just if you watch a lot of dub and you're very familiar with these voices, you'll start to recognize them, and then that can kind of yank you out of immersion or like enjoyment. It doesn't happen for everyone. It has happened for me a few times, but it's like I said, if I wasn't enjoying it, I wouldn't have kept binging it. So I definitely can't say that, like, even retrospectively, I don't not like this series. I fucking love this series still. It has flaws, story flaws, character flaws. It doesn't stop me from loving it. I still think it's a great series, and I do think it's a series that's actually, if you want to get into reading it, it's not super long, right? Like it could be worse. So the web novel is, I think, fully published now with 8 or 9 volumes. So it's only 8 or 9 volumes, and the webtoon is currently on volume 10, and we're moving pretty good in the webtoon. I mean, Nick Nack and I are currently keeping up on that as the volumes come out.
If you were to read the webtoon online, you probably could finish it in...
Well, so the webtoon online is 179 chapters, right? Plus the side story afterwards, which has now been adapted into a sequel story, right? So, but the original...
Oh no, there's more. I'm kidding.
But the original webtoon
It's
is
definitely different.
The original webtoon is 179 chapters. The original web novel is 220 or 240 chapters. So it's not that long.
Yeah, you probably could kick it out and finish it within like a week.
Yeah. I do believe, if I am correct, the legal translation of it is on Webtoon for the webtoon, and for the web novel, it's on Web Novel, like the app Web Novel, or Tapas. It's one of those. I think it might be on Tapas as well.
I have no clue.
So that there are legal ways to read both versions, so, and then as well as having the English printings. I've got my eyes on a, I think 3 weeks ago, they came out with Solo Leveling, the novel omnibus. It's an 800-page hardcover brick that has every volume in it.
Oh, I love those things.
I want it so bad. It is $125.
Oof.
I get it.
I'm genuinely considering it as a gift to myself. Like, it is stunning, it looks great, and I want it.
See, I just love myself a good omnibus.
Yeah. Because, like, and here's the thing. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When I first read Solo Leveling, I read it through Tortuga, right? I did not pay... I was not going to pay on Web Novel or Tapas or Tappy-Toon or whatever. I was not going to do that. I just simply wasn't. My way of supporting the author is that I own physical copies of every single book released so far. That's my... Oh, I also got the figures. So I have a figure at home for it, and I have pre-ordered out 2 more figures. So that's my way of supporting the series, is I just buy the physical media. But I'm not super big into purchasing the digital media. I'm just not a fan of that model, but either way.
Support the series by buying a lot of gacha currency.
Oh yeah, there's also... Wait, hang on, I forgot to mention. There's a...
game now.
There is a gacha game.
It's a gacha style game now,
gacha
based on
game.
the series. It actually, the game allows you to play through all the main story chapters, and then you can gacha draw and collect characters to play with. The game is getting regular updates. I haven't played it in a while because I was a bit bored at how little it released with, which is shouldn't be so judgmental.
It's a gacha game. That's a common problem.
I know, so I need to go back to it and try again. I did think it was fun when I first played it, and I think I streamed it on the channel the first 2 times I played it, I think, and you will notice there was some funky outrage, is because the game itself actually gives you warnings every hour that maybe you should go outside and touch grass and turn the game off and actually live your life. Like it puts a giant caution bar across the top of the screen and is like, you've been playing for this long. Maybe you should log off and go have some fresh air.
The year is 2014, and the Wii U and 3DS are Nintendo's current console. Realm remembers that.
Yes.
Yeah, so, that's fun. I remember getting that banner several times on my screen during my streams.
Game actually looking at you playing for more than an hour and being like, unfortunately for you, however, you are maidenless.
You playing for 3 hours of the game, and the game being like, homie, you need to touch grass.
No, fuck off. This is a series about grinding. I'm on a grind.
That is entirely fair.
But I did enjoy the game. I thought it was largely fun. If a bit boring, I think it's probably a lot better now. They've released a lot more characters. I think the biggest complaint I had with the game when it released was that there were only like 4 or 5 characters that were like decently powerful that were from the series. And then so the game has created characters that do not exist in the manhwa and web novel, right? So there are characters that do not exist there that do exist in the game. And so they had like a bunch of those available, but then there were only like 4 or 5 really good characters that came from the series itself, and I was kind of hoping to I wanted to pull like Thomas Andre and Lu Jigang, and they hadn't been added yet. So I was a little upsetty spaghetti about that. But I got Woo Jin Chul.
Later.
You've actually not met Thomas Andre. You've also not met Lu Jigang. You've not met either of them.
Gee, I wonder why they didn't launch the game. It's almost like they don't appear till towards the end of the series, and they're only in there for a few chapters just to get jobbed or gawk.
Yeah, that's fair.
Born not denying Nick Nack's allegations.
Hang on. Lu Jigang? Yes. Thomas Andre? No.
Okay, he's almost though.
But he isn't.
He's
and
almost.
actually, Thomas Andre sticks around.
Yeah, in the side story.
He keeps coming back.
What did Nick Nack say? Gawkers and jobbers.
Yeah. Well, regardless.
In the side story, he most definitely is one of those. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, but honestly, I would watch an entire series just about Thomas Andre. He's such a fun fucking character.
I would too. I seem to remember I said back when we reviewed the first few volumes that I said I would actually think I'd enjoy this series more if we weren't following the power levelers. I will say, for all the complaining and shitting on it, I'm doing it mostly in good fun here. I don't actually hate this series. There's a certain,
I know you don't, because
there's
you would have stopped me from forcing you to read it.
There's a certain meat-headed quality I actually do enjoy with this series. I just have, there's a point in reading it and watching it, I'm like, okay, when are we getting to the next fight?
I will say so this episode should be airing after the season ends. My current prediction for Season 2 is that Season 2 will end with the Jeju Island arc. That should be the final arc in Season 2. That is the arc that the fans are concerned about in terms of story revisionism. It's really the only arc that they're worried about in terms of story revisionism. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see when this episode comes out, what they did with Jeju Island. But we also get an introduction to another couple characters before then, which is going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost at the point where I might just throw in the second season of this next season just as my one-off submission, just to get through and see what everyone feels about how they did about Jeju Island. Because the other option is I do a separate review of it myself, maybe with
It's a series. It's a seasonal anime. If you need to break us up from Fairy Tail, I don't really care.
It's always going to be Fairy Tail. At this point, all I'm putting in for you guys on my genuine submissions are Fairy Tail, 2 Fairy Tales and 1 of something else. I'm entirely relying on random draws to give you things that aren't Fairy Tail at this point. Alright, Waifu Wars.
Waifu Wars.
Waifu Wars.
Waifu Wars.
Born.
What waifu? There's only the void here. What the heck are you talking about?
Realm.
Igris.
A good cultured choice, my friend. Knick-knack.
Gawker number 1.
Which
the
one is
healer.
that? Wait, what?
Healer girl.
Oh.
who gets written out of the series.
Juhi.
Immediately,
Yeah.
immediately, episode 8, I'm moving back with my family.
Her
Yeah.
name is Juhi. Yeah. So obviously, in much the same way that I gave kind of staggered favorite characters in Fairy Tail based on if they had actually appeared in the arc or not, I say because like I really love Baek-ho, but we don't really get to see the parts I love about him in this arc, so I wouldn't go with him. And then the same thing with like I love Woo Jin-chul, but we get more of him later that I love more. So I'm probably gonna join Realm here and go with Igris, right? Because Igris is just fucking fantastic.
I
love
got a
that
personal
man.
grudge against Igris.
Why?
Because Igris is the source and naming convention you use for a custom necromancy spell that you convinced me to put into the campaign for FGO that then turned around and broke
Blood
the game and I had to
Blood Red
It
Egrets.
took me like a year to figure out how to nerf it to make it feasible.
Oh
Even
my
now
God.
it's not feasible.
Wait, guys, I gotta explain. So, before Knick Knack ever read Solo Leveling, before I had him reading it on the channel, right? When we were first playing through the Fate D&D campaign, I had the problem where my character was still blind, right? Like, in technicality, I was blind. And I did not yet have glasses that could fix that, right? I did not have magical glasses that could fix that. And so my character was using the necromancy spell list. And something you'll note about the necromancy spell list is past level 1, almost every single necromancy spell requires either sight or touch, right? Which made, and like we always made the joke that like, oh, well, Sekhie never uses her magic, right? Well, it's because none of the necromancy spells were like very viable for me. Like it was incredibly hard for me to actually use spells because I couldn't see anyone to use sight, and to touch someone I'd have to get right up close to them and then it still wouldn't do that much damage. So I had asked him if I could use a homebrew spell. And I did not design this homebrew spell. I went on D&D Wiki, right, which is a homebrew website that collects a ton of D&D stuff, and somebody had already created a necromancy spell called Blood Red Igris, right? And it was based on Igris, right? It was based on solo leveling, right? And it's an armor spell essentially.
The problem is that the spell is not. It's about as balanced as you expect a fan-made thing to be in a campaign that's balanced as best as you expect a fan-made campaign to be.
I mean,
Yeah.
also considering the fact that it was pulled literally from a power fantasy show, I did not expect that much balance to be put into it.
We did nerf the spell
Yes.
eventually slightly. Now I have 2 versions of it, and it depends on other items I'm equipped with. I can either equip it in its more powerful form, but if I do that, I do have to go back to being blind. Whereas if I equip it in its less powerful form, I can still be able to see. So we have a workaround for it now. But
And that only kind of works.
well, yeah.
Only kind
Hey,
of.
things still hit me. Okay, it's fine.
But the fact that you're even able
Some
to
of your
stand
some of your
toe-to-toe with-
attackers have like plus 24 to hit.
That's the only way they can hit.
So. Either way, I broke the campaign with this spell.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Significantly, and
Se-
continue to break it because of it.
Sekhie unironically became a tank in a game where we were meant to let our servants be the
I
tanks.
straight up became a human tank. I'm tankier than some of my servants. I'm tankier than all of my caster servants.
Well, that makes some sense.
Yeah.
I figured that could happen.
Yeah.
It's harder to hit you than it is to hit Herc that I have a problem.
It is harder to hit me than it is to hit Herc.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to be fair, I have less health than Herc.
So yeah, I have a bone to pick with Igris.
And also you don't have all of his perks that come with being Herc.
That is true. Yeah. Yeah. I have learned how to use spells now, though, in that campaign. So.
Yeah, after playing Baldur's Gate,
Well, yeah.
where
Yeah.
you then were forced to use spells.
Yes.
Now it's not that she'll never use magic. Now it's she'll never use healing.
Yes, exactly. I don't believe in healers. They're not a thing. Anyways.
See, we need to get her into a team-based game and just follow up on her with that and let her go in without a healer.
The thing is, we kind of been using Medea as a crutch
Ow.
for that, really.
Buddy.
Yeah, kind of abused that bit too much. You really should nerf that.
But yeah.
But you
so, Blood Red Igris. But yeah, no, Igris is a solid character. I love him. Ironically, you know what? The people who the most characterization that you get out of this show is in the form of his summons as they level up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because the summons can also level up, right?
Yeah.
the most characterization you get outside of Jinwoo that's seen regularly is from the summons. Which is why I say Igris is a great character. Because Igris is a character. He's not just an inanimate summon.
Yeah, if you were to ask me, like, my waifu for the whole entire thing, it would just be the Shao Army. Because that is just, like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solid choice.
Yeah. Oh, this season, nothing.
Yeah, because we're just getting into that at the end of this season with the last 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, the last episode is when he gets his powers and starts his army.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's time to draw for a new anime.
Yeah, we're in the random hack this week.
Yeah.
Random.
Let's see. What is the Wheel of Fortune going to spin today?
Well, I don't know, but I will perhaps accept a drum roll.
All right.
Wheel of Misfortune, go! I'm saying misfortune, not fortune.
Sorry. I hate you all.
What?
I'm just gonna double check that that's correct because I don't want it to be correct.
Did we get
Whose
garbage?
is this?
Did we get misfortune? Did we?
Well, congratulations, Knick Knack.
Oh,
It's
boy.
yours.
Why?
Rosario Vampire.
Oh,
Oh boy! Here we go, everybody.
no. Well, the consequences of my own actions.
Yeah. Knick Knack just fucked around and found out.
Yes.
Now we have to watch.
Now
season-
you gotta find out.
So I do believe, is this 12 episodes or?
Oh, no, I've never seen it. I've read the manga. I've never seen the anime.
I think it's 20.
Okay, look it
I'm
up.
pretty sure it's 24 as well.
Well, yes, but we can't watch 24. So look it up and decide whether it's going to be 12 or 13 or whatever.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. I don't care if we get cut off halfway into an arc, so I'm just gonna cut it. If it's a 24 episode series, we'll
It is
watch
a
12.
It is a 20 or no? Oh no. Okay, it's 13 episodes.
1 through
That's
13.
what I thought.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Rosario Vampire was not a full 24 episode anime.
It did not get renewed.
Yeah.
Nope. It
No,
got
did
two.
it?
It got 2 whole seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
no,
the
that's
second
just
season
why.
is called Rosario Vampire 2.
Yeah.
No. We're,
Okay. Yeah, I can't believe you're going to do that. I have volumes of Rosario Vampire. I can't believe you're doing this to me.
I've read the original manga.
That
I
makes
think
2 of us.
I think I watched like 3 episodes.
It was one of the
along.
first manga I read, so that's why I put it in here, because technically this does have, like, knick-knack historical value to it. But also, this series doesn't have that much value to it.
Respectfully, Knick Knack, sometimes revisionist history is acceptable. Sometimes you could just take things out of history, you know? Like, I'm not normally one to be a proponent of that, but, like, this is like if I put Vampire Knight into the hat.
Fun fact, I discovered it while pirating
I
the
put
Pokemon
Vampire-
manga.
Oh, fuck off. Huh?
Fun fact, I discovered it while pirating the Pokemon manga.
That's regrettable. I feel so bad for you.
Uh,
I guess we're watching Rosario Vampire.
Yep.
I don't think we need to watch a trailer for this.
No, absolutely.
We all are familiar
Thank God.
enough
Yeah.
with the series.
we forgot recommendations.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know,
Well, I mentioned a bunch of power leveling series. So
I do have a recommendation.
Okay.
Overlord. It's not technically power leveling, but it is definitely power fantasy.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And it's similar, but I think in some ways Overlord does some of the things better here in the fact that I think the show does, or Overlord does better than solo leveling, is it actually sometimes make Ainz look like a dumbass.
I think for me, obviously I could sit here and list like 100 power leveling series, but that doesn't feel very productive, right? A lot of them don't have animes, so unless you're going to go read them, it's kind of largely irrelevant. I think Tomb Raider King is actually a pretty good one. I think people would like Tomb Raider King.
Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint's confirmed to get an anime.
That is true.
Yeah.
I'm very excited, and a live action movie series.
Also,
but-
we can't forget the original power leveling anime, Dragon Ball.
I mean, I guess.
I mean, that's influential to power leveling in the same way
Yeah.
Dragon Ball is influential to pretty much all,
Everything.
like, Japanese or
Every
Asian
anime, yes.
animated media.
Yeah. What I was gonna say before I was interrupted.
Okay.
So rude.
How dare you? Maidenless behavior. What I was gonna say though
Dorito
was,
eater.
I think.
You guys are throwing the weirdest
Bitch.
insults.
What I was gonna say is that I think The one thing I want out of this show, and the books in general, is just like more presence from the ensemble cast.
Yes.
And a show for me that is, I don't want to say similar in vibe, but a show that gives me that ensemble that I want, while still being sort of like this really overpowered like main character, actually reincarnated as a slime.
That was gonna be my suggestion.
Yeah.
Like if I'm
Okay.
thinking of like the one anime series that has the typical power leveling tropes in it.
Yeah, but you get this really big ensemble cast, and sometimes the ensemble cast is more important
Mhm.
than our main character, and you spend a lot of time with the ensemble cast. So I think, yeah, for me that's kind of like a very out there, but
It's definitely the isekai that comes to mind the most as far as following this sort of power leveling trend.
yeah.
For stupidity's sake, Eminence in the Shadow.
I was actually going to argue like
Oh.
that
Oh
solo
my
leveling
God.
sometimes feels like Eminence in the Shadow, but less self-aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you actually want to go read something, Novels Extra. I love that.
The beginning after the end's also pretty good.
Mm.
I bounced off of this into the beginning after the end, and I really enjoyed it. So that's a good one. Beginning after the end, it's not completed. It does have some funky shit going down with like your main pro tag, especially like emotionally. So that's a good one. You know,
Yeah.
I will not recommend Doombreaker. I can't.
Mm.
We mentioned it. I can't recommend it. Nick Nack agrees.
Yeah, I know it wasn't good.
But yeah, there's a ton of other power leveling. So I mean, if you like this overpowered main character who kind of gets you know what? I've got one.
Mm.
I am the Sorcerer King.
Ah.
Much lesser known, not nearly as popular. Completed. Very very similar.
Here's an alternate way you could get the same exact power trip without going. Like, cut out the middleman here.
Oh boy.
Just go play any RPG to ever exist.
Yep.
Well,
Sometimes I want my power living delivered to me passively.
No,
Lord
you
knows-
don't. With the amount of time you spent on Elden Ring and the Dark Souls franchise, no, you don't. Not comparatively.
You
Hey,
know-
Lord knows that sometimes I don't want to personally slog through every different level in Elden Ring.
Yeah.
hey,
I
Rob,
don't believe that.
I have a suggestion for you.
Ah,
There's this series. It's on Webtoon. It's free to read.
oh
It's
boy.
called The Greatest Estate Developer.
The Greatest Estate Developer?
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah. Yeah. You're gonna love it.
Alright.
Just
You're gonna love it.
no, I just thought of this. Can you actually like make yourself just like mod like Baldur's Gate 3 so that you're at max level at the start?
Yes, you can.
There you go. That's your way of playing as an overpowered character. Have fun.
Yeah, no, you can do that. There's also Baldur's Gate mods that'll let you level up to 20.
See, real OG gamers have played like old RPGs or RPGs in general and have actually gone through the slow like 20 to 50 hour long grind of like making a character so OP they destroy everything, and it doesn't make the game any better. It just makes you feel like you achieved something when you didn't.
Couldn't be me, fam.
Oh, what was that? What was that one that you're complaining about? Like that I was the Cautious Hero. Yeah, Cautious Hero. There you go.
Oh, actually.
Oh, that was stupid shit.
Oh, actually, you know what? Power fantasy game, though, I do still play on a regular basis, though. Warframe.
Yes, I noticed.
Yes.
See you on Steam quite often.
Yeah,
Yes.
we are your Steam friends. We spy on your gaming.
Yes.
We are also your PlayStation friends, so we spy on your
Warframe.
PlayStation gaming too.
Warframe.
Sometimes I just go over to your profile and I'm like, how many hours has Realm put into video games this week?
Ah, yes. Sometimes, though, those numbers can be misleading because sometimes I'll just leave my console on and not turn off the game.
That explains a lot.
Yeah, it really
yeah,
does.
truly a lot.
Yeah, because I was really wondering how someone would have 3,000 hours to sink into a game.
No, he has that 3,000 hours sunk into
Oh, I
it.
do. Oh, I absolutely do. Oh, I do absolutely have it sunken into those games.
Could not be me. I have had Baldur's Gate 3 for a year and a half now, and I have barely gotten to like 300 hours, I think.
Keep this in mind, though, Sekhie, when you're looking at my Warframe hours. That is over the course of about 9 years.
Doesn't make it better.
Favorite
No, it
game of
doesn't.
all time. I can say confidently I only have probably just above 200 hours on it.
That's impressive. Worrying, but impressive. I am.
And this is over like
Begrudgingly
multiple
impressed.
playthroughs over like 10 years, so.
Well, I think we might have finally exited the realm of relevant discussion.
Yes.
Which means that we should probably end this episode. So that you all can go and read or watch Solo Leveling yourselves. Or leave a comment about how we all have shit taste. Or great taste, depending on who you fall.
Tell us your stupidest grinding session in the comments.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think the worst grinding session I've ever had was it like 30 hours straight in Baldur's Gate, I think I once played. Like straight through overnight, an entire day.
I spent like 20 hours in Final Fantasy VI grinding out an item that gives you the ability to cast any spell you want in the game for the cost of only 1 MP. So I can spam the strongest spell in the game for only 1 MP against the final boss. That took me way longer than it was worth.
The only thing I got is, I think, 150 hours when I was playing Minecraft. This was not continuous, of course.
Everyone in this room has played Minecraft.
Middle school.
I
And
know.
not middle school, high school.
Look, let me rejoice in my newly found game.
Minecraft is just addictive. It really is.
It is.
You can do so much.
My tower is so pretty.
Look, you can like enjoy Minecraft. Just when you're going high five, just know you have to like step outside and high five collectively with everyone who's like Gen Z and most millennials at this point.
Well, regardless, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye. Try harder, everyone.
Everybody.